Greetings everyone, Ben here from TheVirtualEconomist, and welcome to the second episode in my series on keys and refined. Last episode I talked about the fundamentals of the problem and helped explain why keys keep increasing in refined metal. In this episode I want to talk about something a little bit different, something that I don't think most people really think about when they bring up keys and refined. In fact, this is a topic that I'm almost a little bit scared to bring up because the community seems to be so eerily silent about this issue. So you might ask, what problem are you talking about? Well, it has to do with Backpack.tf. Now, before all you guys lose your minds, I need to make a quick disclaimer here. This video is not going to be a full-on rant about how Backpack.tf somehow screws over the entire economy just by existing in the first place. I know some people like to blame Backpack.tf for literally all of their problems, and I want to just get this out of the way. I don't think that there is any way Backpack.tf is ruining the economy, and anyone who argues this is just foolish at best. What I think people can actually argue about, however, is the methods Backpack.tf uses to implement item pricing, and that is exactly what I'm going to be talking about. The thing is, to me there is a problem with Backpack.tf, and I'm just going to tell you up front, it's probably not what you're expecting me to talk about. To me, the problem with Backpack.tf is how items are assigned monetary value on the website. You see, each item on Backpack.tf displays a value not only in a currency like keys or refined, but also in real United States dollars. While this value is not often used in actual trading, having an index of real monetary value for each item allows the website to quickly and efficiently calculate total backpack values for each user. Now, why would I be talking about this in a series on keys and refined? Well, as it turns out, this monetary index gets completely screwed over by the rising cost of keys and refined. This is due to one simple fact. The monetary value of each item on the website is derived from the initial value of refined. If this sounds confusing, let me go into more detail. If you've ever been on Backpack.tf even once, you've probably noticed that refined metal is the only item priced not in another in-game currency, but in actual real-world money. This essentially allows Backpack.tf to extrapolate further item values based on the amount of refined metal an item is worth. For example, if you have a 2ref item, Backpack.tf simply multiplies it by the United States value of refined to get you the monetary value of your item. At the time I'm making this video, refined is 7.5 cents, so Backpack.tf would simply display the item value of 15 cents. Likewise, if you take my entire backpack, which is valued at the equivalent of 60,000 refined, Backpack.tf would simply multiply that number by 0.075 to get the value that I see at the top of my backpack, around roughly $4,500. Now, on the surface, this might seem just fine. It looks like Backpack.tf is correctly calculating the total amount of refined in my backpack and then spitting out an equivalent monetary value. However, this method of calculating backpack value fundamentally breaks down when you consider the key. Let me explain why. Right now, let's assume keys are worth 26 refined. I know keys are not worth this much at the time of uploading this video, but since keys have been recently fluctuating around this value, I think it is easier if we just round to a whole number. Anyway, like I was saying before, Backpack.tf prices items based on the amount of refined metal that they are worth. Thus, it will tell me that a key is worth 26 times 0.075, or wait, $1.95? Your gut feeling should be that this makes no sense and I didn't intend that pun. Like I enumerated in my last video, keys are the most stable currency in the entire game, and they definitely should be displaying a value much higher than $1.95. But as you might notice, Backpack.tf currently values keys at this low price, over 40 cents less than their average price on the Steam community market. This means that if somebody buys a key from the Steam marketplace for $2.45, this value that they see in their backpack suddenly doesn't correspond at all to what they paid for it in the first place. To make the problem worse, it doesn't just have to do with raw keys. Any item priced in the currency of keys also suffers from this exact same issue. This means that as someone's backpack gets bigger and bigger, this small value discrepancy represented in one key is extrapolated to the point where large inventories might display hundreds or even thousands of dollars less than what they arguably should. To me, this is one of the fundamental problems with the way Backpack.tf handles keys and refined. In order for keys and items priced in keys to display an accurate monetary value, the product of the amount of refined in a key and the monetary price of refined need to equal an equilibrium of around $2.50. While I believe key suggestions work perfectly well, the way Backpack.tf prices refined metal seems to ensure that this equilibrium will never be reached. Let me delve into why. In TF2, there are a few different markets in which items can be purchased. the regular item market, the Steam community market, and the cash market. All of these markets are fundamentally different to each other due to the simple fact that an item can have a different value in each one. Take the key for example. On the Steam community market, it commonly has a value of around $2.30 to $2.50. Yet in the cash market, they often sell from $1.70 to $2.10. Just looking at these numbers, you can easily tell that keys sell for far less on the cash market than they do elsewhere. This is because of the inherent risk associated with cash trading. While Marketplace.tf has been doing wonders recently to reduce this risk, a lot of people still wouldn't want to engage in cash trading and take on the risk of a PayPal scam without being incentivized to do it by being able to get a cheap price for items. And this is exactly the problem with the way refined metal is priced on Backpack.tf. In my opinion, Backpack.tf exists to represent the value of each item on the regular item market, that is, the normal value in-game or in the trade window. Yet refined metal, the item that gives monetary value to literally every item on the website, is being priced using its value in the cash market. Since items in the cash market always sell for far less than in the real item market, it's no wonder that the Backpack.tf value of a key is artificially low. On top of that, there is almost zero proof that can be found to change the value of refined. Only a tiny minority of traders sell for PayPal, and even less would consider buying refined, as keys are at least 100 times easier and more efficient to purchase. Thus, most refined price suggestions are based on tiny amounts of questionable proof due to the microscopic volume of sales that occur. Plus, the only websites where large amounts of proof can be found, such as Marketplace.tf, have been deemed unusable for proof by the Backpack.tf admins. Because of all of this, refined suggestions are often up for weeks on end, with the entire comment section turning into a literal battlefield of people complaining and insulting each other. Then, by the time these suggestions actually get accepted, they often lag far behind the actual market trends. All in all, refined suggestions are an absolute mess. What might be even more concerning than how refined price suggestions work is what happens to your backpack value when the price of keys and refined change. You see, while keys have a very stable monetary value on the Manco store, the Steam community market, and the cash market, Backpack.tf just doesn't represent this. Remember, the monetary value of the key on Backpack.tf is determined from multiplying the cash value of refined against the total amount of refined in a key. In this sense, refined metal and keys exist in what should be an inverse relationship, since the product of both inputs is equal to a stable value. This inverse relationship basically says that if keys go up in refined metal, the monetary value of refined should go down, or if refined goes up, the amount of refined in a key should go down. However, keys and refined are updated very independently of each other, and even little changes in the value of either can not only ignore this inverse relationship entirely, but make the Backpack.tf monetary value of the key very, very volatile. Of course, since items priced in keys are tied to the monetary value of the key, this can in turn make backpack values fly literally all over the entire map. Let me show you an example. Instead of dealing with my giant backpack, let's consider a backpack with exactly one key in it. This key will basically represent somebody who has many items priced in keys in their inventory, so we can easily see what happens to the backpack value when the key to refined ratio changes. You know that backpack value graph you worship when you make profit? Well, I'm going to use a graph just like that to show what happens visually. This means I'll graph time on the x-axis and backpack value on the y. Let's assume that in this theoretical example, keys are worth 20 ref and refined is 10 cents. So I would expect the graph to value the key at exactly 20 times 10 cents or $2. But what happens when keys go up in refined metal like they normally do? Well, then my backpack value would naturally go up. If keys increase to 27 ref, my backpack should now be valued at $2.70. But this isn't right. Now keys are worth more than they should be. Fortunately, when keys start to get this valuable on Backpack.tf, a price suggestion on refined is usually passed, be it after a long time of sitting open, lowering the monetary value of refined. Let's assume the refined metal gets repriced to 8 cents. Then the backpack value should go down to $2.16, right? Well, yes and no. And this is where stuff starts to get really weird. You see, when refined metal loses value, it doesn't lower people's backpack values like you might expect. In this theoretical backpack, it will display that the inventory is now worth $2.16, but instead of seeing the last point go down like it normally would, the entire graph shifts down. What? Yeah, you should be just as confused as I am. Why would this happen? Well, Backpack.tf seems to have no way to display price memory for refined metal. This means that when the price of refined changes, the website assumes that it had the price it just got changed to for all of existence, which causes any point on the graph before the present to show an incredibly inaccurate value, hence the perception of the graph shifting down. If this pattern continues, Backpack.tf will show you that as keys and refined metal change like they normally do, your backpack is constantly going up, since when the present point on your graph should go down, the entire graph shifts down instead. The total price of your backpack should remain roughly the same since the present price is always correct, but the graph of previous prices of your backpack just continues to get more and more inaccurate. If you want further proof of this, just look at the history of my own backpack. Back in December of 2015, I had at least $1,500 before I cashed out to build my computer. However, as we can see, when Backpack.tf factors in 2017 refined prices, it values it at a measly and completely incorrect $800. But that's not even the worst of it. Since each currency is updated independently of each other, what if keys and refined change in a non-inverse relationship? What if keys increase in refined metal while ref increases in monetary value? Or what happens when keys and refined lose value at the same time? Well, then your backpack value will get even more screwed up. If we go back to the 1 key backpack, let's assume that the 27 ref key drops back to 20 refined, but ref doesn't go up to compensate. Suddenly, your 1 key backpack is now being valued at 20 times 8 cents or $1.60. For a freaking key, that is pretty messed up. Yet, this is exactly what happened at the start of January. Keys went down in refined metal while refined metal lost monetary value. This resulted in keys being valued on the site at a ridiculous low of $1.73. Since items priced in keys are tied to this key value, this in turn caused everybody's backpack values to literally go die in a hole for no reason at all. Fortunately, the key went back up to compensate, but this fluctuation still demonstrated just how unstable Backpack.tf's key pricing really is. Anyway, I've been going on for a while now, so I want to take a step back and review exactly what I've been talking about. To me, there are 3 fundamental problems with the way Backpack.tf handles keys and refined. Number 1, items priced on Backpack.tf are devalued due to how the website prices refined metal using a cash market value. Number 2, when refined loses value and keys increase in refined, Backpack.tf inaccurately represents the history of backpacks due to refined not having price memory. Number 3, since the price of all items are based on the key to refined ratio, when keys and refined are changed in a non-inverse relationship, the value of a key can get incredibly screwed up. When all of these are put together, it's no wonder that people get confused about what's actually going on with keys and refined. Backpack.tf is not only inaccurately representing the value of backpacks so that they are artificially low, but it also makes it look like keys are somehow increasing and decreasing in monetary value. In reality, keys always have roughly the same value, but Backpack.tf makes it look like they are fluctuating chaotically when they are absolutely not. Of course, this confusion only makes people extremely frustrated whenever keys or refined change in value, since their entire backpacks arbitrarily go up and down. So how would we fix this? This has been something that has been on my mind for quite some time now. At first, it didn't really seem like there was an easy fix, especially when I heard that some of Backpack.tf's issues are caused by how the website is hard programmed. However, after good thought, I think there is a great solution, and it is so much simpler than people might expect. In essence, the solution revolves around 1 key point: eliminating all fluctuation in backpack values. Literally the most hated thing ever is seeing your backpack go up and down in value for pretty much no reason. Keep in mind, this was one of the reasons that buds were so bad for the economy, as they created unneeded volatility in the prices of higher tier items. To eliminate this fluctuation, Backpack.tf should pick a flat value for the monetary price of keys in the normal item market. It could be $250, $240, $230, it honestly doesn't matter as long as Backpack.tf keeps this value constant at all times. As I've always said, keys are the most stable currency in the entire game, and they better darn well reflect that. Once keys have a flat, stable value, the price of all items can be based off it. This means that all items priced in keys would now display an accurate value. For example, if we use the flat price of $250 for keys and you had a 2-key item, it would be valued at 2 times $250 or $5. But what about items priced in refined metal? Well, personally, I think that all cheap items should also be based off the stability of the key. To be honest, I don't think that the cash value of refined should have been used in the first place, as it was clashing the lower cash value of items with the price of items in the normal item market, essentially just screwing everything over. Instead, I believe that all items priced in refined should be priced off a refined value that is derived from the stable key price. By this, I mean that Backpack.tf should automatically value refined at, let's say, $2 2.5 divided by the amount of refined in a key. This means that as keys naturally rise in refined, Backpack.tf can quickly and accurately auto-adjust the monetary value of refined such that it would accurately represent the inverse relationship. For example, if keys went up to 30 ref, Backpack.tf would change the website value of refined to be 2.5 divided by 30 or 8 cents. On the converse, if keys went down to 20 ref, Backpack.tf would change the website value of refined to be 2.5 divided by 20 or 12.5 cents. Putting this into perspective, if keys are 26 ref like they are now, Backpack.tf would value a 2 ref item at 2.5 divided by 26 times 2 and display a value of roughly 19 cents. Now look, I know some of you guys are probably looking at this solution and thinking, well wow Ben, now everything is just going to be valued way higher than it should be. The thing is, that might be true. If I go with 250 as the flat value of keys like I did in a lot of my examples, this would probably make everything a little bit too expensive, as after all, keys never sell for that much beyond the Manco store. Thus, I do want to stress that I don't think that the constant value needs to be 250. If you factor in Steam Community Market sellers' fees or the key value on Marketplace.tf, it's probably fair to say that the flat value of a key should be lower. To be honest, I think that the most elegant solution to this problem would be to just let each user individually adjust this constant value when they view the website. For example, if someone cared more about cashing out, they would probably set this value to say 2.1, like keys sell for on Marketplace.tf. If somebody sold a lot of items on the Steam Community Market, they would probably want to set this value closer to 2.5, so their items would be valued similarly in both markets. After all, this value is relative depending on what market you're in, so this would make the most sense to me. So the big question is, does this solve the 3 major problems I talked about earlier? To that I have to say yes, it certainly does. If keys are used to price items, then no items would ever display a wrongfully low value since they would no longer be priced off the low cash value of refined, so we can check off number 1. Keys not refined would become the main item giving value to other items, so whether it be today or 3 years ago, Backpack.tf would always have an accurate price memory for backpack values, checking off number 2. Last, since all items are based off only one input, the amount of refined in a key, it would no longer matter whether the product of keys or refined equaled around 250, since it would just always be the case. And there you have it. After hours and hours of hard work, you finally have the second episode in my series on keys and refined. Now, I do actually want to point out here that this video did actually contain a lot more opinions than my last episode did, and I actually wound up rewriting and re-recording large sections of the video. Maybe I'm just being paranoid, but I feel like a lot of other experienced traders might be quick to jump on anything I say, so I really just wanted to make sure that my arguments were as clear as they possibly could be. Of course, as always, if you don't think this was as big of a problem as I talked about or want to bring up, just a different viewpoint, I wholly invite you to share your thoughts in the comment section below. Like I said before, this has been a topic that has been on my mind for ages now, so regardless of what comes of it, I am still incredibly happy that I'm finally getting around to releasing this video. And maybe, just maybe, if the Backpack.tf devs see this video, they might just be able to implement the solution. Until next time guys, thanks for watching.